Ooh, let's get that tag back in there. I don't want people to find out that my merch is just some cheap shit from Redbubble.
Ooh boy, are we in for a deep dish tonight?
Now, my original plans for what this next video was supposed to be, I was just going to, casually continue on my happy little trail, continuing on the Rant community series, and just going along my merry way, all that good shit. But then I found this outstanding achievement of a video. What might this be? You may be asking? This is all the worst traits of what the Rant community can be, wrapped up in one neat little, one nice little gift box. Essentially, to fill you in on a context, something that this video so painfully lacks, STAX is a content creator who I am very closely affiliated with. He makes rant videos predominantly on storytime animators and the whole community of YouTube as a whole. These videos often contain a main goal he's shooting for and usually showcases a good understanding for the creator he's criticizing. These videos are usually delivered in a much more serious and critical tone rather than a lighthearted and fun tone, which is fine, of course. You're not really gonna get loud and bombastic humor out of this personality, but that's never the type of stuff he aimed for in the first place, and as a result, his personality works on his own merits. It's all good. Over the course of July 2018, he kinda blew up a little bit with his Leafy copycat video. And since then, he's become an essential figure in this upcoming wave of rant channels. And of course, within every success, there's going to be that one guy who just wants to, have his own say in it. He just wants to throw darts at the balloons because why not? Introducing the one, the only Professor Kuhtoonster. Professor, on the other hand, is a YouTuber who has never exactly stayed consistent with the content he's created, but unlike STAX either painfully misses the mark on nearly every aspect of STAX's videos, or all of his arguments are entirely comprised of his emotions and show a blatant disregard and disrespect for the viewer. And when I say that, I'm not referring to it in a direct light. What I mean by this is that he presents us with entirely subjective and frail arguments, no context to properly supply us with any depth to these arguments, no further research to where the creators show a clear understanding for what he's even critiquing in the first place, and oftentimes I would pause the video and think to myself, if he's ever actually even seen a STAX video in the first place, he doesn't even supply us with the basic formatting practices that convey the point in a coherent or even functional manner. This video doesn't work within its own merits or the community's standards. And in that video, that's what I want to discuss today. Now you might be asking to yourself, Exro, is this a topic that should even be talked about in the first place? I mean, he isn't even that big of a creator, so what's the point? To that I must say, no, but it isn't going to stop me from making this video in the first place. In case you can't already tell, I don't intend on taking this video too seriously, because I don't feel as if the content in question should even be taken seriously in the first place. And I'll dive in on why I feel that way to be the case here soon, don't you worry. But for now, I'm just going to be treating this as a way to break up the monotony of my more serious content. So let's all just sit back, have a few brewskis, and have a laugh at how terribly constructed this video is in the meantime.
Commentaries. They are still around for some gay reason, and a new community has popped up in recent months that I call the New Wave Fag Commentary Community. This is a community that takes some attributes from the original slideshow commentary community and the Leafy is Here commentary community.
Now this is a very interesting topic to begin on because it signifies two key clues on how this video plays out. One, his constant refusal to provide context, and two, his complete unawareness of the community he's critiquing in the first place. This is evident through the fact that he starts off the video by stating that the New Wave commentary community is inspired by the Leafy is Here community. Here's the thing though, Leafy is a content creator known for his toxicity and constant insistence to prematurely insult another creator or community without the self-awareness to see that the fundamental flaws of these insults on their own don't work as legitimate arguments, which he very frequently performed when he was still active in the community, mind you. And as far as I'm aware, most of these other content creators who are also closely affiliated with STAX and who have proclaimed themselves to be a part of this community don't share those same attributes. Like, yeah, Turkey Tom sometimes goes off and makes a really edgy joke or just makes flat out dumb points, but he doesn't make up for the entirety of the community. There are other creators out there like Just a Robot, Manga Common, STAX Just Jargon, and LS Mark who identify with this community who seemingly share no direct traits with Leafy. Now this isn't that big of an issue, and I understand that this isn't an essential point in this video, but it was just interesting to point out because within 20 seconds of his own video, he distributes a very blatant misunderstanding of the very thing he's attacking in the first place. And in that regard, what credibility do you even have to bring up these YouTubers in the first place?
But basically, this community is filled with unentertaining, boring YouTubers. The people I am referring to are people like Digby the Goat, Just a Robot, Ponder Sprocket, and the subject of today's video, STAX. If you guys don't know who he is, basically, he is a new wave fag commentator who makes videos shitting on other YouTubers.
Now this is another essential moment to identify in this video. Not only does he show an obvious disregard to understand the community, but he also shows a painful misunderstanding of STAX himself. Painting STAX as someone who shits on other YouTubers would be to infer that STAX is a YouTuber who makes negative commentary. It's important to note that STAX does not make negative commentary. He makes critical commentary. You don't have to like his content. That's perfectly fine. But to paint him as if he's anything other than what he's already established himself as is just dumb and holds no place in the discussion.
Hell, if we take a look at his channel, you will instantly see the mental retardation. Like, what the fuck is this? Tim Tom, Jaded Animations, Speechy? Seriously, why do so many of these new wave fag commentators make videos on people like the Odd Ones Out and Jaded Animations? Look, I get that it is a pretty autistic community, but it isn't interesting whatsoever to talk about, right? It's a fucking boring shithole of a community. Like, what else is there to say?
Well, gee, I don't know. What more is there to say about this community? Well, thankfully we have the answer, in the form of STAX. In fact, that's the main appeal of his content in the first place. I don't know how you missed the mark that much. He provides a lovely list of videos in which he discusses aspects of these creators that aren't usually discussed or even talked about. And if they are frequently discussed, he's able to go more in depth with those arguments because he makes individual videos on separate creators, leaving in a lot of leeway for each video to expand upon the last. All you have to do is just watch these videos. Once again, you don't have to like what you're watching, but acting as if he isn't bringing anything new to the table or isn't saying anything valuable is just intellectually dishonest. I mean, just look at how most of these creators respond to these videos. That shows that people are very obviously taking his voice seriously to some extent.
But Exro, he isn't arguing over the repetition of the story time community topic.
Alright, then enlighten me. What is he arguing for?
He's arguing about the fact that he doesn't find it personally interesting. Isn't it obvious?
But it isn't interesting whatsoever to talk about, right? It's a fucking boring shithole of a community.
For someone who tries to act all high and mighty because you use the words retard and autistic way too fucking much, you sure do base a lot of your own arguments on your emotions. And that is truly the ironic component to this whole video.
What really gets to me is that this guy actually decides to take the time to overanalyze each of these idiots.
This is probably the first actual claim he's made, and it's a pretty dumb one at that. Essentially, he's claiming that STAX overanalyzes these creators. Well, okay then, let us discuss what overanalyzing refers to in the first place. After all, that is the best way to understand something. It's to discuss it and analyze it. Well, since he doesn't provide any insight to what overanalyzation is, let me discuss with you what I believe overanalyzing is. Overanalyzation is a constant attempt to inflate a minor point and making it out to be a much bigger issue than what it actually is. Things like your own taste in humor,
the quote-unquote jokes he tries to do. the jokes. Calling them jokes is, it's very,
your own taste in content.
But it isn't interesting whatsoever to talk about, right? It's a fucking boring shithole of a community.
And so maybe throw in something about his avatar there.
And I don't want to hear this bullshit of, well, this guy has animation in his videos, and his editing is good. What a hard-working YouTuber. Nah, fuck off.
You fucking get the point. You know what I'm getting at. Now, he does provide a video clip to back up these arguments. So, I think, I'm a fair guy. Why not give this clip the benefit of the doubt? The one time he does provide context, you get that once in a blue moon in this video. So, let us look at it.
But throughout the rest of 2016, he would upload a second and third video, which all had similar characteristics. The videos would be rather short, the art was very minimal, and the character was super simplistic. The backgrounds would be almost non-existent, outside of a few blurry PNGs here and there, but that was rather rare.
Really? That's the clip you went with? Okay, so to fill you in on some context, because Professor seems to have sunken so low that he leaves this out to support his own arguments, that little clip he just showed you wasn't a major argument or an essential theme to the critique of Tim Tom. That was literally just STAX introducing the YouTuber by making obvious observations. These weren't cases of overanalyzation, this was a case of obvious observation. I bet you all of my rent that if I were to point out a ladybug in front of this guy and say, that ladybug's red and has black spots on it, he'd immediately follow that up with, dude, no, stop! Dude, you're overanalyzing the bug too much, dude. Gosh, what an artist, am I right, fellas? Continuing off the backbone of this terrible claim, he follows up by saying that if something is bad, you should let it be bad, and anybody who even tries to touch it is an idiot.
No. Stop. Why are you overanalyzing this shit? Just make fun of it. It's laughable. There's no need to give a long-winded argument as to why they're bad. Just let the shit speak for itself. And anyone with a brain will realize it's retarded.
There are several things to bring up before going further. Firstly, he's made the argument prior in this video that whatever content he doesn't find personally appealing isn't meaningful. In fact, this is something he continues to perpetuate even towards the end of his own video. The fundamental flaw in this is present when you just look at STAX's comment section. I brought this up before, but I'm gonna bring it up again just to get this concept through this guy's skull. Creators have reached out to him and have stated that his critique on them has somewhat influenced them. Creators like Jaden Animation, Sir Palo, Kitty Dog, Rosemary Tomato, Katsun, Valesky Bum, and Just a Robot have all reached out to STAX after engaging with that community. And yeah, granted, it doesn't work every time, that's just a given. But the fact that there's that interaction in the first place single-handedly refutes your lazy arguments that, oh, these creators don't deserve to be fairly criticized, just make fun of them, because your efforts will just be futile. Which in reality is actually just loose translation for, I do not want too big brain, therefore, this guy is a retard.
And I know some idiots will try to play the hypocrisy card on me because I made a series reviewing shitty reviewers, but this is where context is important.
Oh, don't even act as if context is even a factor by this point. Get off that high horse as if you have any say in it at all for providing context when you've refused to provide context throughout this entire video. Oh boy, this next argument, it sure is something else. If I were to make a definitive claim with this video, I would definitely say something along the lines of this being his worst argument in the video. And that's saying a lot because oh man, what a rough resume.
The difference between me and this guy is that the people I decided to overanalyze were reviewers. People who actually tried critiquing pieces of media and did an overall shit job at it with their points. That's the main difference.
So you're saying that the only piece of content that matters in this community is you reviewing reviewers reviewing something else? Wait, but doesn't STAX do that by just reviewing other content creators in general? Isn't that the same premise? Oh, okay, I got you. So you're saying that it's okay when you do it, but not when anybody else does it. The immense hypocrisy, it's quite the astounding feat, if I must admit.
But this guy decides to overanalyze storytime animators. What substance is there to critique exactly?
Oh gee, I don't know, did you watch the fucking videos yourself? See, this is where I have my doubts about if he's even watched STAX's videos in the first place. He never brings in arguments aside from the things that occur in the opening of these videos. The only other claim that you can say that, like, maybe attains to something outside of the opening is his voice.
His voice is the most monotone thing I have ever heard in my fucking life.
Which is a very general claim. You can skim to literally any part of the video and get that memo. So does that one even count, really? He never tries to make an argument against the content of these videos themselves, at least not with actual following behind it. Feels like he watched 20 seconds to a minute and called it good. You see, this is the signs of a YouTuber who's throwing a little fit because he doesn't understand why YouTubers don't bend backwards for him. Fun fact, did you know that these creators didn't make their content to specifically appease you? Crazy concept, I know, but you're not big shit. You're not that brooding and edgy force that you make yourself out to be just because you hold the vocabulary of a junior high PE class. And look, usually I don't feel the need to be so harsh and cold in my videos, but if this guy is going to act like tough shit, it's at least acceptable in my eyes to treat him the same way as he would have treated me.
It's just retards who can't animate, talking about their lives in the most pandering way possible that appeals to socially awkward teenagers. Like, oh my god, you made a video talking about how much you get yourself overworked when it comes to making videos? Hashtag so relatable. Yeah, that's really cute. I took physics, chemistry, calculus 2 last semester, and while everybody else fails those classes individually, I got a solid A on all of them. No A- bullshit either. Shut the fuck up.
I'm sorry, who is this argument for again? Did you forget that you were making a STAX video there, bub?
His voice is the most monotone thing I have ever heard in my fucking life.
It's funny that you bring up the monotone argument because all it does is just showcase that you don't know what a monotone voice even is. This is a monotone voice.
When you think of the ranting community, you usually think about people like Spockter, Pentagrin, Solar Sands. And what do these guys all have in common? They're toxic as hell.
And this is just his normal speaking voice.
And these were on top of the 20% of all earnings they made that went straight into the Paul's pockets, meaning that Jake was constantly stealing money from fellow members of Team 10 for small and seemingly pointless mishaps. This shows that no matter how close you are to the Pauls, you're just another tool that they can use to grow as the money-hungry empire that they are.
God forbid he doesn't do the same hilarious, goofy voices that you do.
Well, this guy has animation in his videos, and his editing is good. Like, oh my god, you made a video talking about how much you get yourself overworked when it comes to making videos? Hashtag so relatable.
Man, I sure do love it whenever you do that to make an actual point. That certainly isn't grating on the goddamn ears. Once again, to reiterate, it is okay to dislike somebody's content. What isn't okay is when you take these subjective and non-arguments and pin it against the person in an attempt to dish out legitimate criticism.
You sound like a retarded high schooler.
Oh boy, you'd be blown away if you heard yourself right now. And then you got this dumb joke segment, right? Once again, this is an argument completely comprised of his emotions.
Was that supposed to be funny? Oh yes, that random humor is hitting my funny bone. Just good job. Good fucking job. You deserve a round of fucking applause. Just
here's the deal. This argument can only appeal to people who agree with everything he says. And yet he continues to mention this as if this segment holds any meaning just at all. I'm just going to skip over this segment entirely because it's only functional on an emotional level. If you don't like STAX's humor, well, yeah, obviously you wouldn't like his jokes. Not that his earlier videos are that funny to begin with, but I mean, once again, he doesn't try to be insane with his humor, and appears very rarely in his videos because he tries to take a more critical approach to these topics. He is not a bad content creator for doing this. Despite what this confused mucus stain might state, he only becomes a bad content creator when he tries to tackle something that he has no understanding of or claims to be something that he isn't. Like so. Now let us take this wonderful time to examine his amazing formatting that relays information perfectly to the viewer. Okay, so he starts off by saying he doesn't like STAX's humor, which, you know, that's fine enough, I guess. You can have your own opinions. That's fine. But then he follows this up by refuting the arguments that his fans supposedly use, that he uses animation to represent himself.
And I don't want to hear this bullshit of, well, this guy has animation in his videos, and his editing is good. What a hard-working YouTuber. Nah, fuck off.
Okay, firstly, as the editor of STAX's videos, I am very much involved within his community, and never have I once seen this being used as a way to refute somebody else's arguments against him. So this argument isn't even based on any logic to begin with. But secondly, what does this point even have to do with his jokes? This claim had absolutely nothing to do with the focus of the segment you were talking about. But then he goes on to use this point to insult his personality. Once again, that was never a factor in this argument against his jokes in the first place.
I would rather see someone take a piss in a jar and use an image of their piss in a jar in their video. I'd rather see that if they actually have a personality versus someone who has like a full-fledged cartoon but has zero personality whatsoever.
And then he goes further to say this right after.
It's really funny how these guys constantly whine about the storytime animation community being lazy with their videos, even though they have animation in their videos. And now when it comes to this fucking retard, they're like, wow, he has animation in his videos. What a fucking awesome YouTuber. Like, fuck off, dude.
I just want to make it clear to everyone out there, if you are so deeply lost in this entire segment, don't worry. Okay, so at first you think he's going to talk about how they whine about storytime animators and then make the claim that their personality is just as lazy, right? I mean, it's the most logical place I thought that was gonna go for a minute. I mean, he did just derail the argument to talk about STAX's personality, so process of elimination. But then takes a complete 180 and makes the observation that STAX uses animation. He uses this as an argument despite not making a single claim in the first place. So, to put it simply, his point was that the Rant community can't complain about the lazy animation whenever STAX also animates. He doesn't even specify if STAX's animation is good or not. He just says that they can't do this thing because this one guy animates. What does that even mean? And follows it up with this comment.
You guys are no better than the fans of the storytime animation community. Like, honestly.
Okay, so hold on for a minute. When was the Storytime fanbase a variable in this scenario at all? You started off talking about STAX's humor, went off on a tangent about how his fanbase makes an argument that nobody has ever made, went off to say that the community can't criticize this other guy because, someone within their community does the exact same, except no, he doesn't. He isn't guilty by association of an entire medium that's existed for nearly a century by this point. In fact, I'm pretty sure it has been over a century by this point. And then you finally redirected back to the Storytime animators fan base. Do you even know where you're at right now? I am legitimately concerned on if this dude even knows where he's currently residing in the world. Someone, please call the police. This is very terrifying. You went off on 3 completely different paths. Not only did you go off on 3 completely different paths, you went off on them at the exact same time. I didn't even think that was possible. I didn't think that it was possible to lack the self-awareness to be able to do that, but here we are. Yep. Everyone give him a round of applause. I sure as hell will. Your video does not function from a structural standpoint.
Not trying to sound like a nostalgia fag, but I remember back then seeing rant videos from people like Silent Rob, where it's just some fag going up on camera and just shit-talking people. But here's the thing, those videos were and still are fun to watch. In fact, let me just show you a little bit of Silent Rob with his rant video, that he made back in 2009.
Oh wow, Professor, you're right. He is pretty entertaining. I wonder why this type of content is no longer predominant in the Rant community. I'm really intrigued by this topic. Let us dive a little deeper than below the surface level and look into why toxicity doesn't seem to last very long in any given community. When I say toxicity, I mean the people who are intentionally as destructive as possible with their content and provides no actual or valid arguments for their claims, instead opting to throw insults at other creators and using that as the argument. Well, firstly, you have the obvious factor where it just makes you look pathetic. Fact is, when your videos are constructed around just the concept of being so fucking condescending as possible, your arguments will typically make very little sense or hold no weight to them. It's the same reason why people don't consider Chris Ray Gun or iDubbbz as contributions to the toxicity within their own communities, because they supply their arguments and claims with actual proof and context. In contrast, these people pretty much ask that you already 100% agree with their arguments, but also that you have no prior understanding or interaction with that person they're critiquing in the first place, because their arguments stem from a basic lack of knowledge that the general face of YouTubers have seemed to grasp. By doing this, you only appeal to a very small amount of people who are either extremely young and whose mentality of a joke is being edgy for the sake of being edgy, or people who are socially inept and can only surround themselves with other people who are equally toxic because they're so bad at being able to take the most basic things at face value, and as a result, nobody else can stand their presence. This is also why nobody takes these channels seriously either, no matter how hard you try. This is why, outside of a few outliers here and there, you will very rarely see a channel bathing in its own toxicity going anywhere on the site whatsoever. Secondly, due to the fact that a lot of your audience is bound to be smaller children, eventually they will grow up, and if they progressed as a normal figure in our society, it means they've matured enough to see how dumb your claims are. Anyone with the most basic knowledge can refute almost all of your arguments immediately. And you see, while the Rant community has had a long history of toxicity, the thing that's important to note is that content evolves, creators evolve, and their audience evolve. This is the sole foundation in which the algorithm thrives off of. If you're unable to see that, you will fall into complete obscurity like the rest of these toxic rant channels.
People? What happened to making a legitimately entertaining video instead of making a video or use a shitty OC based off of a shitty animal and overanalyze videos that don't need to be fucking analyzed? Is this what ranting has become? Like, seriously? And this isn't a small channel either. This guy has 30,000 subscribers. 30,000 idiots, you know, sit there and actually watch this guy. Honestly, spurgs like this ruined the website. They made this website into a fucking joke. A fucking joke.
Now this is the final part I'll be looking into, because I don't really have the heart to finish hearing what this retarded half-lizard has to say about, you know, how everyone else should be making content. Basically put, no, STAX does not ruin the website. You ruined the website. People who are as toxic as you ruined the website. You are the reason petty drama exists. You are the reason that the Rant community, to this day, isn't taken as seriously as it could be. Because you only appeal to edgelords whose idea of a joke is to say the words autistic and retard over and over again. Because you never make any actual claims in your videos that have substance to them. Because your arguments are entirely emotional. You sit there in front of your microphone and whine and complain about creators who have nothing to do with you and about how they should be making the content that appeals to you and only you. Hey, guess what? Pro tip. No, they shouldn't. Promoting that level of boring, generic, and unfunny garbage makes you, as well as everyone else associated with you, look just as bad as you made STAX out to be. So, for the love of God, sit down, shut up, because you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. That's really all I had for this. I didn't really intend to make it initially, but, you know, I mean, it was so painfully bad that I felt the need to poke a little fun at it anyways, you know, just enjoy myself. The next Rant community video will be out sometime soonish. Can't really give you a clear date on when that's gonna come out, but I am working on it, so don't you worry your pretty little face. But for now, this is Exro telling you to have a nice night. Good night, everybody.